Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In this module, I will continue the discussion on motivation for life cycle assessment, and in particular I will talk about the varying impacts of different stages of a product life cycle. So in the previous module we looked at the life cycle of a product, and we identified that there are 5 major stages: material extraction, material processing, manufacturing, use, and waste management. And you can have reuse, remanufacturing, and recycle, and this together constitutes the life cycle of a product. And when you do life cycle assessment, you look at the emissions and resource used across the complete life cycle. In this particular module, I will focus on how different stages could be more or less important based on the product that we are analyzing. And I will do that by using a case study that has already been published several years ago, and I will show you the reference little later. So this case study or this exercise considers 6 different products: a car, a pair of shoes, laundry detergent, fleece jacket, something that we wear during winter, beer, and milk. So these are the 6 products. And the objective of this study was to calculate the life cycle carbon footprint. So the focus is only on the carbon footprint of these products across the life cycle. And this is little more information about this exercise. So in this particular study, the life cycle of these 6 products is separated into 5 stages. First is resource extraction, second is manufacturing, third is transportation. So this includes the stage between the manufacturing facility and the consumer. So whatever transportation is required between these 2 stages. The fourth phase or the stage is use stage, and finally the end of life or waste disposal. And as I said, the focus is primarily or only on carbon dioxide emissions. And this study has done detailed calculations for all these 5 different stages. Now, as part of this exercise, in order to keep it simple, I would like you to think about these products and identify what, in your opinion, are the 2 most important stages in terms of emissions. Let me provide some additional information. So in this slide, I have these 5 different stages marked as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I have given some additional information regarding the products. So the car is actually a specific model of a car. This is 2007 Toyota Prius. Just for your information, Toyota Prius is a hybrid car. For shoes, they have provided some additional details like 1 pair of hiking boots, laundry detergent, a specific quantity of detergent and how many loads it can take, and so on. Similarly for beer and milk, they have given the actual quantities. Now the exercise here is not to do the calculations because it is not possible without getting all the details. But I want you to think about it qualitatively and identify the 2 most dominant stages, irrespective of the numbers. I am not concerned more about the numbers. The focus is on identifying which, in your opinion, are the top 2 emitting stages of carbon dioxide or GHG emissions. So, if possible, please pause this video, on a pen and paper, identify which are the 2 most dominant phases in your opinion, and then move ahead where I will present the answers. So this is the study that I was talking about. I have given the reference at the bottom. It's a newspaper article in Wall Street Journal that came out in 2009. And let us look at the results. What was the outcome? And I will present the numbers also. So this is the total carbon footprint of the complete life cycle. So a jacket, for example, generates 66 pounds of CO2 equivalent. The laundry detergent had a total carbon emission of 31 pounds, and so on. And as you can imagine, a car has a very high carbon footprint simply because when driving it uses a lot of energy and emits CO2. It also has a very long lifetime, typically about 15 years or more. So these are the actual numbers, but my question to you was to identify which 2 stages will be the most dominant among the 5 stages for each of these products. So let us look at the distribution of these overall impacts. So this figure here shows the contribution of each stage for each product. So for example, if I take this top left example, which is of a car, and the y-axis is the actual CO2 emission, you can see that stage 4, which is the use phase, has the most carbon dioxide impacts or carbon emissions. And this is expected. As I said, car is when it is driven, that's when it is in the use phase. When it is being driven, you refuel it or recharge it depending on the type of car, and that leads to the greatest emissions. So the case of a car is not so surprising, but for some of the other products, the results are somewhat counterintuitive, or it may not be so obvious. If you look at a pair of boots, which was one of the products that was considered, you will see that most of the emissions are because of the material mining and processing step. So this is when you are actually extracting the material and processing it before it actually is sent to the production facility. So stage 2 is the product manufacturing. That's where the boots are actually manufactured. But the analysis shows that the greatest impact, and this is significantly higher than the second stage, this greatest impact is by the first stage. A similar result was observed for the jacket also. So you can argue that jacket and boot are similar kinds of products. So in case of jacket also, the greatest impact was in the first phase when you are recovering the material. So whatever is the raw material that you use for the manufacturing, the recovery and processing of that material leads to the greatest impact. And as expected, the impacts during the use phase and so on are very minimal. They might be 0 or extremely low, and therefore they are not really visible here. Now let's look at the other 3 cases. The interesting case is of a laundry detergent. Here if you see, the greatest impact is because of the use phase, and this might come as a surprise. And let me tell you why this is the case. So this study was done in the Western world context, where washing machine by default is used for washing clothes. So when you use a laundry detergent in a washing machine, you typically have to warm the water. In order for the liquid detergent to work efficiently, you have to warm the water, and that requires a lot of energy. So if the heating of water contributes significantly to the use phase. Additionally, if you are using drying, if you are not drying clothes naturally outside, which is commonly done in India, but in Western countries, if you have seen, they have a dryer. So the dryer actually gives you bone dry or extremely dry clothes. So that also leads to significant emissions. So for a laundry detergent, the use phase is the biggest contributor. Comparatively, the other stages are not that significant. For beer and milk, the distribution is kind of similar. So you have significant impacts during the mining and processing phase. So here for both these products, the mining and processing or stage 1 will include agriculture. So if you are using barley to manufacture beer, then the farming of barley and so on will be the stage 1 for beer. Similarly for milk, it will be the animal caring and so on. So that will be stage 1. So that contributes the biggest, but the use phase also contributes. That is because of refrigeration. So when you have beer or milk, you need to refrigerate it once you use it. So milk typically is not used in one go. So you have to refrigerate it either at the store before a consumer buys it, and also at the consumer level. So that's why the impact is higher during the use phase. So I request you to go to the original article and find out more details. The article explains all the assumptions and the related numbers. I should also clarify that these numbers are subject to the assumptions that are made in the study, and therefore you need to clearly read the article and understand what were the assumptions. But the point of this exercise was to give you a sense of the distribution of the total life cycle impact across different stages. And a very important point to note here is that depending on the product that you are analyzing, the dominant stage could vary. So in some cases, use phase is the most dominant one. In some cases, it could be product manufacturing. In some cases, it could be material and mining, and so on. So this could vary based on the product. So to summarize, the important learning outcomes of this module was to first again emphasize that consideration of all the stages of life cycle is very important. But more specifically, we saw that depending on the product, the dominant stage may vary, and therefore the identification of hotspot is one of the valuable outcome of doing a detailed LCA study. Because if you want to lower the overall impact of a product, you need to know which is the most dominant stage, and you can then focus on making that stage more efficient so that the impact goes down. So that is a very useful way in which life cycle studies can be used. In the previous module, I introduced the concept of life cycle assessment through some motivating examples. I emphasized why life cycle assessment is important, and towards the end of the module, I presented the life cycle assessment framework. Carrying forward in this module, I will talk about the first stage of life cycle assessment, which is goal and scope definition. And particularly this module will focus on a concept called functional unit. So to recap, this was the life cycle assessment framework as mentioned in the ISO 14000 series. There are 3 different stages, and the focus of this particular module is on the goal and scope definition stage, which is the first stage. Before I get into it, I would like to highlight that goal and scope definition stage is qualitative in a sense that there are no calculations, but it is often the most important stage of doing life cycle assessment because it has implications on the final results and interpretations. So goal and scope definition, the first part is goal. Every LCA study that you are doing must have a goal statement, which must include what is the intended application, what is the reason for this study, who is the intended audience, and whether the results will be used for a comparative purpose. This is important because based on the objective or the goal that you have, the scope as well as the kind of data that you need will change. So I am giving an example here extracted from a report prepared for the American Christmas Tree Association. This was an LCA study done to compare conventional Christmas trees, which are trees that are cut, with artificial Christmas trees, which are typically made from plastics. So the goal statement in quotations is like this. Goal of this LCA is to understand the environmental impacts of both the most common artificial Christmas tree and the most common natural Christmas tree, and to analyze how their environmental impacts compare. So the authors clearly say what is the objective of this study. The study is to understand the environmental impacts and compare those. Further, they clarify the intended application. The application or the use is to educated external communication and marketing for consumers, and they expect this study to be released to public so that consumers can make more informed decision. So through this goal statement, they have clearly stated what is the intended application. So this is an example. Whenever you are starting with an LCA study, it is very important to formulate this goal statement so that your further steps are clearly defined. Scope is actually a very important stage, a very important aspect of any LCA study, and there are 3 main components. First is functional unit, second is system boundary, and third is the product system. We will look at each of these in some detail in the subsequent video and additional modules. This particular video will focus primarily on functional unit. So functional unit, the concept is that functional unit decides the basis of comparison. And let me explain this by using certain examples. So let us say we are interested in production of sulfuric acid, which is a very important chemical produced in industry. And there are two main processes to produce sulfuric acid. One is the contact process and second is the lead chamber process. Both are used to produce sulfuric acid. And let us say I want to compare these two processes and find out which is a more important process. The question is, what should be the basis of impact calculation or comparison, because that is the functional unit. So I want you to pause the video, think about it and answer this question. What should be the functional unit, or what should be the basis of comparing the two processes? So I hope you have thought about your answer. So here the objective is to compare these two processes. Now one common answer that many times is given to this question is that I can look at a plant that is producing sulfuric acid using contact process, and I can similarly look at a plant which is using the lead chamber process to produce sulfuric acid, and I can compare the impacts. That although may not be a fair comparison, because it's quite possible that the plants are not producing the same quantities of sulfuric acid. So the capacities might be very different. So if one plant is larger than the other, it's quite possible that the emissions from those plants are more. But that doesn't mean that the process itself is more polluting, because it is just producing more, and that's why it is leading to more emissions. So it is not a fair comparison. The second common answer that is given is I will compare on the basis of CO2 emissions or any other life cycle impact. Now CO2 emission or life cycle impact is an outcome of the LCA process. That is what you are trying to calculate. The question here is more fundamental. What should be the basis of the comparison? So the correct answer is the basis of the comparison should be production of sulfuric acid, but production of a fixed quantity of sulfuric acid. So I can take functional unit as 1 kg of sulfuric acid. So I will say that what is the impact for production of 1 kg of sulfuric acid using contact process? What is the impact for the production of 1 kg of sulfuric acid using lead chamber process? And then I can compare. But it has to be more than that, because sulfuric acid can be produced in different concentration grades. So I have to clarify what concentration I am interested in. So the functional unit will be 1 kg of certain percentage of sulfuric acid. So both process must produce the same concentration of sulfuric acid. Then only it becomes a fair comparison. So I can then look at a plant for contact process. Using contact process, I can find out if that plant is used to produce 1 kg of X% of sulfuric acid, what are the impacts. I will do a similar analysis for the lead chamber process and then do a comparison. So this becomes your functional unit. Let's look at another example. Let us say I want to compare 3 different types of cars. So you have one which is a battery operated vehicle, second is a conventional vehicle using petrol or diesel, and third, let's assume, is a biofuel vehicle operating on biodiesel or bioethanol. So the question again is, what should be the basis of the comparison? On what basis should I compare these 3 cars? So again, pause the video, think about it, make up your mind and then move forward. So I hope you have thought about this question. Now the challenge here is that all these 3 vehicles use different kinds of fuels. So the battery operated vehicle uses electricity as the energy source. The second vehicle uses petrol or diesel. The third vehicle uses ethanol or some blend of ethanol and petrol or some biodiesel source. So the fuels are very different. The fuel in the first case is not even quantified in terms of liters or kgs. It's an energy source. So what should be the basis of the comparison? So here you should think about the use of this particular product, in this case the car. What is the use? Why do we use a vehicle? We use a vehicle to move from one point to another point. So driving is the main outcome or main utilization of a car, and therefore the comparison should be on the basis of distance driven. Okay, so an appropriate functional unit could be 1 kilometer of distance driven. So I will find out the emissions because of 1 kilometer of distance driven by each of these three cars, and what are the emissions or impacts associated with that. So if a vehicle is very energy efficient, then it will require lesser fuel, and therefore the emissions to drive 1 kilometer will be lower. In contrast, if another vehicle is very energy intensive or very fuel inefficient, then in order to drive that 1 kilometer, it will require more fuel, and therefore the impacts will go up. But we also need further qualification factors or qualifying factors in the functional unit. It cannot be just 1 kilometer of distance driven. We also have to ensure that all these three cars are of similar type, because smaller cars are typically more fuel efficient, larger cars are less fuel efficient, and so on. So we can say that all cars should be, for example, 4-seater. They also need to be driven in similar driving conditions. So you cannot compare one vehicle which is driven in city versus one which is on highway. So all these additional factors must be required or mentioned so that the comparison is fair. And then I can compare the emissions and make a choice which is better or which is worse. The life of the vehicle will also come into picture. That you can bring in by quantifying or by finding out what is the total life cycle driving capability of a vehicle, which could be several thousands of kilometers, and scale that impact for 1 kilometer. Let's look at another example which we discussed in the previous module. This is for different types of cups. So again, we have 5 different cups. I want to do life cycle assessment of these 5 cups and find out which is the best one. So question again is, what should be the functional unit or what should be the basis of comparison? Again, pause this video, think about it and prepare your answer before moving forward. Okay, so I hope you have thought about this. Now here 3 cups are reusable while 2 are disposable. So in situations like this, which was the case in earlier examples also, you should look at the use or the service that is provided by this product or all these products. So just think about the service. So here the service is drinking. We are using cups to drink either tea, coffee or something else. So that is the service that is provided. So your functional unit should always be based on the service that is provided. So here an appropriate functional unit would be certain number of coffee or tea drinks. It could be 100, 1000, 1, you can decide the number appropriately. But then we will have to compare the impacts for the same number of drinks. Now let us say my functional unit is 100 uses of or 100 drinks, which means that I will need 100 paper cups and 100 styrofoam cups. So if I do life cycle assessment of manufacture of one paper cup, I will have to multiply it by 100. So that gives me the total impact for drinking 100 coffee cups or drinking coffee 100 times. In contrast, let us say the plastic cup has a lifetime of 100 uses. So after 100 uses, it becomes, you cannot use it. In that case, I will have to consider the life cycle manufacturing impacts of only one plastic cup, because the same plastic cup serves 100 drinks while we need 100 different paper cups. So then it becomes a fair comparison. If you compare one plastic cup versus one paper cup, that is not a fair comparison, because plastic cup can be used multiple times. So whatever energy, emissions, water consumption that you had during the manufacturing of the plastic cup can provide you more than one drink. So these are some examples of how functional unit has to be decided. Some common mistakes that are made while deciding the functional unit are: first, functional unit should be quantitative. If you are looking at power plant, it cannot be generating electricity. It has to be quantitative. So you can say 1 unit of electricity or something similar. You also shouldn't confuse the functional unit with the output that you are generating. So tons of CO2 or kgs of CO2 or meter cube of water, this is something that you are quantifying as an outcome of LCA study. So that cannot be a functional unit. And if you are using LCA for comparison purpose, then the functional unit has to be consistent and fair. So the important learning outcomes of this module are: first, goal decides the intended application of LCA. Second, functional unit is a very important decision that sets the basis for quantification or comparison. And when you are deciding the functional unit, the focus should be on the service that is provided by the product.